How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am an Avid Herpetologist, and today we're going to be revisiting another one. I'm sorry, I can't do this. How's it going, guys? I am an Avid Herpetologist, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be revisiting a deck that I continuously return to as new support tends to roll in. We've still got more support on the horizon with the advent of BT17, but for now, here in the States, we have just received EX6, which means we have got an entire new Digivolution line for Aegisdramon. Now this new support is going to culminate in the mega level Xiangpengmon. I'm hoping that's correct pronunciation, Xiangpengmon. Xiangpeng is actually strong enough, it kind of reshapes a lot of the deck around itself. It is a very powerful card, and a lot of the support cards that have come with it are going to really help the deck in terms of speed, consistency, and memory efficiency. I talked a little bit about some of these new support cards in my last Aegisdramon deck profile, and today we're going to be looking a little bit at how they are going to play into the strategy as a whole, kind of go over where the deck goes from here. Now, this is still very much not a top tier deck. Aegisdramon is still very much a fun rogue strategy, but there's one thing I love doing on this channel. It's doing deck profiles for decks that are fun rogue strategies. If you are looking for a good Aegisdramon deck, this is going to be my take on where I'm going to be at least starting off the EX6 format with as far as my personal list. We're going to look at some of my tech choices, look at my ratios, and my personal favorite tech card, which is going to be my secondary mega in this new format. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the deck profile. I'm super excited to share this with you guys, so yeah, let's get into it. Hang on just a second, guys, before we get into it. If you are interested in picking up any of the cards that you're going to see featured in today's video, you can now do so using my TCGPlayer affiliate link, which can be found in the description of all of my videos moving forward. By following the link in the description below, you'll be redirected to the TCGPlayer website, where you are free to purchase all of the cards that you were going to buy anyway, with no additional charge to you. But just by following my link, they'll know that I redirected a little bit of traffic to their website, which means I'll be making a commission off of every card that you buy. If you're looking for a way to financially support the channel, again, without spending any additional money, just remember to follow my TCGPlayer affiliate link in the description below, buy the cards you were going to buy anyways, and you'll be helping support me while getting to continue enjoying the hobbies that we all share together. I personally have used TCGPlayer for pretty much the entirety of my trading card game career. As long as I have been purchasing cards for myself, I have bought them off of TCGPlayer if they were not coming directly from an LCS. I'm overwhelmingly proud to be able to support TCGPlayer through their affiliate program, and again, you would be supporting me just by using that link in the description below. Thank you all so much for your support, and with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get into it here. As usual, we'll be starting off our deck profile with our eggs. Now I am choosing to play 5. We've actually got a new secondary Aegisdramon egg that you are able to run, and honestly, I've kind of been going back and forth about which one of these I want to be playing more copies of, but for now, we are going to be sticking with the same egg as before, and that is our 4 copies of BT7 Bukamon. We've covered Bukamon in all of our previous Aegisdramon deck profile lists. On your turn once per turn, when you play a Digimon from your Digivolution sources, you can gain a memory. This card is really nice for helping us climb our ladder pretty efficiently, hopefully being able to make extra Digivolutions on our turn so we can get into our Megas pretty fast. But we do have a brand new egg that I want to talk a bit about, and that is the brand new EX6 Yokomon. Yokomon has a when attacking once per turn effect that lets you place a level 3 blue Digimon card from your hand as this Digimon's bottom Digivolution source. So Yokomon has a couple of really interesting things going for it. First and foremost, it's going to obviously let you refill your stack with a new level 3, which is really helpful, especially if there's value level 3s that you wanted to be in your stack that weren't able to get there right off the bat. So let's say that we're, starting our turn, we hatch our egg, and we need to Digivolve something right away in order to get our plays moving, but it's not the level 3 that we were kind of hoping for. Well, Yokomon's going to give us the opportunity to tuck the additional level 3s, for instance, things like Crabmon or Betamon, really whatever it is that we need for our circumstances on our follow-up turns. Yokomon is also, of course, great for triggering our Mega Xiangpengmon, who we're, of course, going to be talking a little bit about later. And we're also going to revisit talking about Yokomon when I get to my secondary Mega. It's actually, if I was to build a list a little more focused around that secondary Mega, I would actually probably use Yokomon 100% as the 4 of and keep Bukamon as the single copy. Honestly, you don't even have to run the full 5 eggs if you don't want to. If you'd rather just run one or the other, that's totally fine. If you want to run a 3-2 split, also I think is totally fine. Both of these eggs have a lot of merits. They also have some downsides, but ultimately this is how I'm going to at least be starting off. If Yokomon performs really well, I could absolutely see swapping it and making it the 4 of, but for now, we're going to stick with our boy Bukamon, use Yokomon as our secondary, and we'll just kind of go from there. So let's go ahead and move on into our level 3s. We are still playing 4 copies of Gomamon from BT7. This Gomamon, when played from Digivolution sources, allows you to draw 2 cards. Now this Gomamon is of course very basic, but he is fantastic for our consistency, especially now that we have access to Yokomon, where if we start with our Gomamon, just cheat him out to draw 2 cards, Gomamon will then be able to draw us 2 additional cards, which hopefully we'll be able to tuck thanks to our Yokomon. So he's really awesome. I do think he's still worthy of running as a 4 of. I've seen some lists choose to omit him. That's fine, I suppose, but I personally am still going to be choosing to run him as a full 4 of. I do think he is still very, very good. Now, we're also still going to be running 4 copies of BT15's Betamon. Betamon has an ability where if it was played by an effect, one of your opponent's Digimon cannot attack until the end of your turn. This does not stop blocking, unfortunately, but is good for at least holding off aggression. It also has a fantastic jamming inheritable, which has led Betamon to see play in lots of other unrelated blue archetypes just because of how powerful generic jamming is. Now, Betamon is a very good rookie for this deck, but I actually think what has quickly become, in my opinion, the best rookie for the strategy has to be EX3 Crabmon. Crabmon has always been, obviously, a mainstay in Aegisdramon as an archetype, but honestly, I think my respect for this card has done nothing but grow as the deck itself has kind of evolved and changed. On play, one of your blue Digimon gains jamming for the turn. Then, if this Digimon was played from a Digivolution source, you can place a blue level 5 or lower Digimon card from your hand under that Digimon as its bottom source. So we're again going to be returning to talk about Crabmon a lot more as we kind of reach up into our mega slots. There's going to be a lot to talk about with my flex mega, but Crabmon is just fantastic. Being able to give jamming despite being cheated out is obviously great for aggression. The fact that you can give this haste off of our WaruSeadramon, give it self jamming, and then swing with it is super fantastic. There's lots of benefits and lots of really cool plays you can do by playing out Crabmon and then tucking an additional card, and the fact that it's 5 or lower means we can also tuck, of course, our ultimates, which is pretty unique. So there's lots of things to talk about with Crabmon, and we are going to be returning to him a little bit later, but the other rookie we are running, I'm actually upping my rookies to 14, thanks to the new Yokomon. I do think it's helpful to have extra rookie bodies to tuck. I'm going to be playing 2 copies of the new Biyomon from EX6. Biyomon is an inherent blocker with another generic jamming inheritable. This means Biyomon is going to be great not only obviously for giving us more jamming in our sources when we need it, but being able to not only block, but being a disposable blocker that we can throw into things like Magnamon X to prevent the effect from reprocking, makes Biyomon a honestly pretty helpful kind of tech card that honestly could be replaced by a couple of other things. You can choose to play things like Memory Floodgates, like Madoki Betamon if you really want to, but I am going to be opting for 2 copies of Betamon for that nice jamming inheritable, and the value that having a disposable blocker can bring for the deck. Next up, we're going to move into our champions. We are going to begin by talking about the other new addition from EX6. We are playing 3 copies of Xiquemon. Again, I hope my pronunciation on this is correct. It may not be, but I'm assuming that pronouncing this as Xiquemon is correct. It has an on-play to draw a card, and if played from Digivolution sources, will also gain you a memory. Pulling double duty is both a consistency piece as well as a speed piece where we can be gaining a little bit of extra memory, obviously super, super nice, with another generic jamming inheritable. I'm telling you, we are never going to be dying to our security checks with this deck. Xiquemon is honestly a pretty straightforward card. There isn't too much to talk about with this guy. If you choose to run 4 of him, I think that's totally fine. I personally will just be running a total of 3. I think he's good at what he does, but isn't necessarily the champion that I want to be seeing every single game. So for the time being, I'm just going to be playing him at 3. He is good for choking out the opponent, and if we go into our Xiangpeng or Aegisdramon plays. So 3 copies of Xiquemon is going to do us there. And next we have our primary combo piece, and that is going to be 4 copies of EX3 Ebidramon. This is another card that I feel like I've overlooked from time to time, but is definitely one of, if not the single strongest champion in the entire deck. On play, one of your blue Digimon gains blocker for the turn. We don't really care about that too much. What we care about more is when played from Digivolution cards, you can unsuspend the Digimon that you selected. There are a shocking number of combos that you can do with this Ebidramon. And again, we're going to talk a little bit more about them when we get to our megas. We have a lot to talk about when we get to our mega levels, but Ebidramon being able to unsuspend is how we're going to get more additional aggression. The fact that he does provide blocker is not as relevant, but can still come up, makes our, Aegisdramons a 14k defender, which it's good for raising our shields while we're trying to aggress our opponent out after playing out all of our bodies on our big combo turns. So Ebidramon is going to be actually the only 4 of champion that I'm playing in the deck. I am also playing a total of 3 copies of WaruSeadramon. Seadramon has an on-play and when digivolving effect to make one of your blue Digimon unable to be deleted in battle until the end of your opponent's turn. This ability is basically just better jamming. Not only will this make sure that your Digimon will not be deleted in battle with security, but it also means that your opponent cannot block it or run it over on the follow-up turn. So this is very much a good effect, but I think it's honestly overshadowed by just how good its inheritable is. On your turn once per turn, when one of your effects plays another Digimon, any of your blue Digimon gain Rush for the turn. This ability is really good. Since we're already going to be playing out a lot of additional bodies, being able to give those extra bodies Rush and be able to immediately send them in potentially for game is basically one additional source of our hybrid for game. You know, our last ditch play that's going to be able to hopefully give us game after swinging and smashing through the last couple of bits of security. So WaruSeadramon is a very, very powerful card. It's definitely worth including at a minimum of 3. Another card that these are honestly all ratios that you can kind of tweak in your own personal list. And my last level 4 that I am running is going to be 3 copies of BT15 Seadramon. Seadramon is possibly the simplest card in the entire deck with inherent Rush, as well as jamming. So again, if we cheat out a rookie, Digivolve for 2 into the Seadramon, now the Seadramon is able to attack immediately for only 2. Again, another source of like that hybrid for game mentality, with yet another source of jamming from the inheritable to make sure our stacks are not dying to early security checks, as long as we can avoid obviously problematic removal options. So Seadramon is hopefully going to be able to tie this line together. Having an additional rookie level jamming inherit will hopefully mean that checking with Seadramon is still going to be very safe. So even if we are promoting and immediately digivolving into Seadramon, we can get a free check, go into our level 5, cheat something out. It gets our combo turn started just that slightest bit earlier, while also helping us get a little bit of early aggression. So big fan of Seadramon, going to be playing him at a total of 3 copies. And that is going to do it for our champions. Let's go ahead and move on to our ultimates. Beginning, we're going to be talking about the new level 5 for the deck, and that is Huankunmon. Again, I'm so sorry for pronunciation. Huankunmon is 8 to play, 7,000 DP, 3 to Digivolve, has an on-play or when Digivolving effect to play a level 3 blue Digimon card from under one of your blue Digimon sources without paying the cost. This is the better half of the WaruSeadramon's effects, where it has that nice on-play when Digivolving effect, and also, as I mentioned in my last video, steals the inheritable from BT15 Mega Seadramon. When attacking once per turn, by placing one of your other blue Digimon as this card's bottom Digivolution source, you can unsuspend this Digimon. This is going to allow quite a few of our level 6s to have some very big burst turns, being able to cheat in things like our Ebidramon, potentially being able to immediately spit them back out again and abuse that on-play effect. It gives the deck the ability to shred through a whole bunch of security in a single turn by using the same Digimon to unsuspend multiple times. Huankunmon is the merger of both WaruSeadramon and BT15 Mega Seadramon. It has the best half of both of those cards' abilities, and for that reason will be the 4 of ultimate that I am running, because I definitely want to be seeing this card as often as possible. Now, the other level 5s that you're running are honestly kind of up to your personal list. There's a couple of different options that you have. Obviously, EX3 Mega Seadramon is still great, BT15 Mega Seadramon also still completely good, but I have opted to run a total of 3 copies of WaruSeadramon. WaruSeadramon has that same on-play when Digivolving effect to cheat out a blue, or in this case also a potential purple Digimon from the Digivolution sources, but trades the inheritable for an all turns once per turn effect, where anytime you play a Digimon by an effect, you can gain a memory, kind of mimicking our Bukamon egg. The reason I've gone with WaruSeadramon for this particular list is it basically functions as a way to make sure we have secondary bodies out before we need to go into our Megas. Now, that is going to be important for a couple of different reasons, particularly our primary level 6, of course, Xiangpengmon. We're almost there. I promise we're going to talk about him in just a minute, but the ability to cheat out an additional body before going into Xiangpeng helps us make better use of his when Digivolving effect. And even though Huankun is still very much the superior option thanks to that cheaper Digivolution cost, as well as, in my opinion, a better inheritable, Waru is still kind of, in my opinion, the better secondary option, just because if we, for instance, go into our Xiangpeng, we don't pass turn, we do our quick combos, and then go into an Aegisdramon, being able to cheat out Waru, who can then cheat out another body, lets us go much wider, much faster, and I kind of wanted to abuse that more so than, for instance, like Mega Seadramon, who just has the when attacking once per turn effect, or potentially even the other Mega Seadramon from BT15, who doubles up on that inheritable to unsuspend. Now again, it's up to you. You can honestly choose to run really whatever you would like. In fact, I'm running 2 additional level 5s that you could easily sub out for either of those 2 other cards, but This, as I mentioned, is just how I'm going to be starting the format. I've had some pretty decent success with it so far, so 4 Huankunmon, 3 WaruSeadramon, and we'll go ahead and move into our other level 5. I am still playing 2 copies of one of my favorite tech cards, and that is 2 copies of Kimeramon. Despite this deck not being multicolored, having Kimeramon be able to combine any level 4s for 1 additional blitz per game is obviously great. It's even better once we start talking about some of our other tech cards that we're going to be using, in the sense that since his On Digivolution effect lets you tuck a level 5 or lower Digimon from your trash into the bottom source, you still get to abuse all of the other awesome cards that you have on your lower levels. So Kimeramon is going to be my choice for, again, one last way that we can kind of close the game out if we need to, as well as being able to remove potentially troublesome small bodies, things like Floodgates, for instance, because if we are able to go into Kimeramon and tuck a WaruSeadramon from our trash, we are able to give minus 3k to the board, which will help deal with rookies. So frustrating cards like Biyomon or Pamumon that shut this deck down outright are going to have a much harder time actually keeping us steady. So 2 copies of Kimeramon. Again, these can easily be swapped out for BT15 Mega Seadramon, EX3 Mega Seadramon, Mermaymon if you really want to go that route. There are other cards that you can choose to go with, but I'm going with Kimeramon for the reasons that I have mentioned. And with that, we are finally able to start talking about our Megas, which is going to be a bit of a discussion, so please bear with me. To begin with, we have our brand new shiny centerpiece for the deck, 4 copies of Xiangpengmon. So Xiangpengmon is 12 to play, 4 to Digivolve, and has 12,000 DP. Alright, this is going to be a bit of a mouthful, so bear with me. On play, or when Digivolving, you may place up to 3 of your other blue Digimon as this Digimon's bottom Digivolution cards, then return all other level 4 or lower Digimon to the hand. For each card that you tucked using this effect, you can also add one to the level maximum that this effect is returning with the bounce effect. So basically, if you return 1 Digimon, you'll bounce all level 5 or lowers, 2, 6 or lowers, and 3, all 7 and lowers. So he ultimately is going to function as a very potent board wipe. He also has a Your Turn effect once per turn. When an effect adds to this Digimon's Digivolution sources, you can play a level 5 or lower Digimon with the Aqua or Sea Animal trait from this Digimon's Digivolution sources without paying the cost. So basically what's ultimately going to happen is Xiangpeng is going to be digivolved into or cheated out. You're going to tuck some sources, bounce the entire board, and then the effect will automatically trigger, letting you play out something immediately, whether that be memory gain and card draw from your Xiquemon, whether that be unsuspend effects from Ebidramon. You got lots of different directions that you can go here, but Xiangpeng is ultimately a board wipe. And I honestly think this card is so powerful, it definitely does deserve to be the ultimate centerpiece of the archetype now. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to have cards like WaruSeadramon and Huankunmon that are going to be cheating things out before we go into this to make sure we have at least one thing that we can tuck. So at the bare minimum, we should always be able to bounce all level 5 or lower Digimon off the field. If we're able to commit an additional body and can tuck 2, we're now wiping all level 6s and lowers, which is fantastic. I really like what this card is able to do, and like I said, it just kind of recontextualizes how Aegisdramon is going to be kind of playing out its turns. The interactions that it has with each of the different cards is really, really nice to see, and put into practice is honestly pretty scary. You can build boards pretty quickly while also kind of forcing your opponent to play more defensively with the threat of basically having their board wiped the second you go into this. Xiangpengmon is honestly a really, really solid card. However, there is a secondary level 6 I am opting to run initially at 2 copies, one that I actually think has gotten so much viable support at this point it could probably helm the deck on its own, and that is 2 copies of BT10 Regalecusmon. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of how Regalecusmon combos are going to work, let's talk about what it does. When Digivolving, you would trash the bottom 2 Digivolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon. When attacking, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards in play, you play a level 3 and a level 4 Digimon card from this Digimon's sources without paying their cost. This does not simply restrict us to playing Aquatic Digimon, it is any level 3 and any level 4. Now I'd like to say a big thank you to Fibso3057 who commented on my BT15 Aegisdramon list and kind of turned my attention to cards like Regalecusmon. He brought up the idea of some of these Digimon, including BT1 Metal Garurumon, that can swing to cheat things out on a not once per turn restriction. Combining this with cards like EX3 Ebidramon or BT1 WaruSeadramon means you can unsuspend and continue to swing as long as you have ways to keep putting things back into your sources. Additionally, we can now add Huankunmon alongside BT15 Mega Seadramon that lets you unsuspend by tucking some of your other Digimon that are in play. So in theory, you would be able to attack with Regalecusmon, and as long as you have one each of our 8 level 4s and level 5s, he is going to be good for a total of 4 attacks on his own. Attack with Regalecusmon, cheating in one of your level 4s and any of your level 3s, and you will immediately get an unsuspend effect. On the secondary attack, we're going to use our level 5 Inherit to return our level 4 to our sources and get yet another unsuspend. Then when we attack again, Regalecusmon will once again trigger, allowing us to cheat out our level 4 a second time, which will get us another unsuspend, and of course, another attack on top of it. This, of course, is without combining any additional factors. The brand new Yokomon comes to mind. I mentioned we would return to talking about Yokomon, and now is definitely the time. In a deck focused around Regalecusmon, Yokomon is an absolute menace, being able to tuck an additional level 3 that we can cheat out with this effect, with Crabmon being the obvious most powerful option. Crabmon is going to be able to give our Regalecusmon jamming, meaning it will obviously be safe through our security checks, while also tucking any number of very powerful cards, including one of our 8 unsuspend on plays, or even a level 5, which will let us retuck the same level 4s back into the source for a 5th attack. Now, as I mentioned, I'm currently only going to be running 2 copies of Regalecusmon out of the gate. This is a card I could see bumping up to 3 and playing a 3-3 split between Xiangpeng and Regalecus, just for the sheer aggression this card can provide. Basically, it gives us a OTK tool and a defensive option that lets us kind of adjust our game plan depending on what our opponent is doing. Were I to make that transition, I would very likely be swapping out our Yokomon to be a full 4 copies, and I would consider probably playing at least 1 or 2 copies of WaruSeadramon from BT1, just to make sure we can, like I said, really hone in on that redundancy and make sure Regalecus has that OTK potential if we want it to. So this is another card I have not seen too many other lists playing with yet, but Regalecus is a very, very potent tool right now, thanks to all of these brand new effects it has access to, so consider giving Regalecus a try. I do not think you'll be disappointed with just how aggressive he is capable of being. Alright, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, we are still playing 2 copies of the deck's namesake. Of course, that is going to be Aegisdramon. Aegisdramon's when Digivolving effect lets us cheat in any blue level 3 Digimon card or any Digimon with Seadramon or the aquatic traits from one of your Digimon's Digivolution sources without paying the cost. On the opponent's turn, when your opponent plays a Digimon card, you can activate Aegisdramon's when Digivolution effect. Aegisdramon is only being played at 2 now because he's really more of a follow-up play than the deck's primary game plan, which is honestly a good thing. It's a deck that has kind of tried to function around its level 7, and requiring an additional piece on top of all of the other pieces you already need to stat climb is kind of clunky. So the fact that we can kind of bump Aegisdramon down and we don't need to rely on him, our level 6s can be our primary game plan now, is very good for this deck as far as consistency is concerned. So we're now able to, of course, make our Xiangpeng plays, make our Regalecus plays. When we're done, if the game is still going, we can Digivolve into Aegisdramon, cheat out any card that we really feel like. 2 copies of Aegisdramon is basically just going to try to round out the strategy. Regalecusmon is an aquatic Digimon, so you can cheat him in off of Aegisdramon if you feel like, but remember that Regalecus can only cheat in Digimon on attack if they are in his own sources, so if you do cheat out Regalecusmon and, for instance, give him haste with Seadramon, you won't be able to cheat in other things off of Aegis. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But as long as you understand how that interaction works and the limitations to it, Aegis is still a very worthy inclusion and definitely does help to tie the deck together. Before we wrap things up, we are going to be playing consistency pieces. I'm going to be playing 3 copies of Davis, who's going to let us check our top 3 and add any blue Digimon from among them to the hand, while also, of course, being a nice memory setter. Davis is obviously still one of the best options for generic blue decks, just because that consistency is always nice to have. And rounding out the list, we also have our 3 copies of Blue Memory Boost. You can, of course, run trainings if you really want to, but I still like that Blue Memory Boost checks a full 4 cards. We are still looking for pretty specific pieces, so being able to find those pieces is super helpful. And since this is a deck that is going to be able to play out Digimon for potential rush damage, things like Seadramon, being able to potentially hard play our Digimon without passing turn, with of course cards like Xiquemon only being 4 to play. That's basically going to give us the option to hopefully get an extra body to potentially go into Kimeramon. So again, lots of different angles to approach this with, but I do think that Blue Memory Boost is probably better for Aegisdramon decks over the training cards. Even though obviously the training cards are slightly cheaper, I do think that Blue Memory Boost is more beneficial for the deck overall. But yeah, that's going to about do it for this deck. So there are, like I mentioned, plenty of things and tweaks that can be made to kind of make this deck slightly different depending on how you want to approach your personal list. But ultimately, I do think this is a deck that has still got a long way to go as far as growth is concerned. We still do not have the Seadramon X line, but with Deep Saver support being promised for EX6, I believe it is, we still have lots more to look forward to with this deck getting even better. So for all my Aegisdramon fans, I hope you guys are excited to play with all the new support. I am definitely excited. I'll definitely be taking this to a couple of locals in the coming weeks. And with that, I have been an Avid Herpetologist. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.